Thanks, John. Does Liz get to come out of? Oh, we're live. Sorry.
How's it on now? Okay. Only for the second time. Actually, I'll start this meeting now, and thank you, because that's actually quite a good introduction, Brian. Who's the guy up there? Yeah, absolutely. This is only the second time I've ever chaired a meeting in the history of the Otago Regional Council. At the last meeting, somebody lost their job. So you're on a warning, Brian. Okay. We have the agenda in front of us of the GCE committee. No public forum today. I've got one apology from Councillor Deaker. I'll so move from the chair. Thank you, Carmen. Second, to accept apologies. All those in favour, please say yes. Those against, carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Just one thing there. I'm going to add an item of general business. Just have a little round table on any of your thoughts. I've had some expressions today as to how we might improve communications for governance from a governance perspective. So any of your thoughts on that? We've got a bit of time today in our agenda, so we'll have that discussion.
If you need a resolution to accept that, then I'm happy to.
Right. All those in favour, please say aye. Those carried. So it's just an item of general business. Conflict of interest. Anybody got a conflict of interest today? I scarcely think it. No. Good. Confirmation of minutes. Minutes of the two meetings, 5.1 and 5.2, I'll take together. The minutes of the 11th of August and the 8th of September GCE meetings. So moved from the chair, seconded by Carmen. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried.
Aye.
Oh, okay. Actions. Any actions resulting from that? There seem to be none. Is that correct? There are no actions, then we'll move on. Matters for consideration. In front of you on page 11 of your agenda, you certainly can.
Just a wee bit behind here. In the resolution, you've got the assigned for Enviro schools. Can I read this part because I just want to ask a question. It says, regarding costs of offering the Enviro schools program to all schools and other education centres in Otago. Can somebody enlighten me on what other education centres in Otago include? Are we talking perhaps a private schooling or, like a Rudolf Steiner? I don't know. That's why I've just wanted to ask, please. Can anyone enlighten me?
I think during the discussion of that motion, when I think I put it,
yeah,
it was about those early childhood centres that don't otherwise come in and the opportunities that we had.
So, and it doesn't go to, or does it include, or doesn't include something like vocational training, or you've just stopped it?
No, it wasn't. It was. There's also some senior stuff for kids that no longer go to school.
That's what I wondered.
Or aren't traditional schools.
Yes, it does ring a bell now. Thank you.
So I think they were the opportunity of extending to those sort of kids as well.
Thanks for clarity.
Okay. Actually, I do have one question. Actually, it relates to the first item of the general survey. Who's in charge of that amongst our staff?
Richard Saunders is, but
he's not here today, I guess. All right. And that is, when do we expect the results of the survey to be reported, and what committee will they be going to? Amanda?
So we are just working with Richard to schedule a workshop I think in a couple of weeks, but he's aiming to do one before Christmas.
So are we expecting to have the Versus people here to present their findings?
I'm not aware of that, but we've just been working with them on scheduling.
Yes.
But we can pass that on.
You do have 15th of December in here as a date.
15th of December is our next GCE meeting, or is our next what meeting?
I'm saying that's in the actions as the date.
Yes, so Richard's working to have that to you before then.
But the due date is the date in which it's what? Received, or in which we meet to discuss it? No? Can you come back to us on that?
Yeah, we'll talk to
cool.
Richard.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I've just pulled up an email that was sent by Richard.
Microphone.
Sorry, apologies. I've just pulled up an email from Richard Saunders that was sent on the 15th of the 10th. And it says, with regards to the survey, the plan is to have the results ready to present to you in late November, early December, which, yeah.
So I was trying to get some clarity around that. Can you have a chat to Richard, Amanda, and just flick us an email and let us know? Thanks. All right, moving on.
Oh, sorry. The other matter, which was the EnviroSchools one, I just seeing the date there for the 31st of May. The reason we put that in is that it can inform the annual plan potentially. And I'm just wondering if there's any chance that, again, those dates are the last date rather than the first date, but whether it will be ready to inform if we want to put it out for consultation on the annual plan.
Again, it's a communications matter.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right.
Chair?
Oh, I should not have moved off this item.
No. The survey results, I'm concerned that they'll disappear through the sand, so they won't be here till next year effectively if we've still got to have a workshop and then they come back to a council meeting. And I had thought from what Mr. Saunders said that they would come back to a council meeting in time for us to be looking at them in the
Sure.
annual plan, so as that rather than a workshop, it's a meeting that they need to come back to.
Sure. I think the best thing to do is to get Amanda to consult with Richard, send an email around us, and then we can have an update formally presented probably to the council meeting, but you could do it by email, but we could come to that. And we could have an update at the council meeting, probably through the Chief Executive's report or something similar, as to what the story is and what the plan is. Yeah, cool. Is that all right? And then, but at the council
what
meeting,
the plan is,
if you're
whether
not
it's
happy at the council meeting, then you can say so.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. All right, moving on now. Schedule of council, committee and workshop briefing days for 2022. They are in front of you. Essentially, it's about convenience and the bit I like, number one, no meetings in the school holidays. Is there anything else there that folk would like to discuss, query or talk about? Brian.
Yeah, it's the fact that the proposed meeting schedule is on the basis of a fortnightly cycle. I do apologise. Is that better? Yeah, it's the second bullet point, a fortnightly meeting cycle. Historically, we used to have a 3-weekly cycle, and then on average, it would be 4 weeks to say a committee, then 2 weeks to a council meeting. On average, it was 3 weeks. Whereas now it's actually 2 weeks. Now, from a start, that may satisfy from a staff perspective, but from a governance perspective, I actually question the efficiency. Like, for example, today, like we're starting at 10 o'clock. We've got a governance meeting. You yourself said you want to, there's plenty of time. You can fill in the gaps. You've actually brought on new agenda items. And then we've got strategy and planning for a bit this afternoon. Whereas historically what we would do is we'd fill up 2 days. In my view, from a governance perspective, it was more efficient. I'm not talking about reducing the workload. I'm talking about the same workload, but doing it possibly more efficient. So, for example, councillors from out of town, instead of coming every 2 weeks, with, it's always, every other week. It just, it's certainly not my preference. So I put that out there.
Okay, well, let's have some response to that around the table. Your views? So we should explain, though, to, well, I say new, but newer councillors, Brian, that what used to happen is in the last council is that all of the committee meetings would tend to take place over that 2-day period.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily have to go to that extreme, but, what we're doing at the moment is just 2 today.
Councillor Wilson, then Councillor Curley.
Are you inviting us to make comments?
Yes, Brian's.
I can understand Councillor Scott's concerns, but that's partly because we're not doing, as we were doing pre-COVID, trips and sightseeing, and going around in the regions, which I hope, and I'm not quite sure of that clarity, will be able to be incorporated in this.
Not if you get to the next bullet point, point 6. Given the increased likelihood of COVID, no meetings outside of Dunedin are planned before the next election.
Well, that's that next discussion point, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the next discussion point.
So, if the issue is about getting out, and collegially, I think it's a lot better that we do fortnightly. I think over a longer break, we're not actually talking and discussing issues and workshopping. Well, the light agenda today is because some things dropped off it because they just weren't ready, but that doesn't mean that the intent isn't there. And given the workload coming with land, water, LWRP.
I'm not talking about the workload, I'm talking about the manner in which we connect to it.
Yeah. Well, given the amount of work that's coming up, I would have thought we need to be meeting regularly, but that's just my opinion. Yeah.
Well, all these opinions count. Councillor Calvert.
I take Brian's point about putting things in a collection for out-of-town people, although I can't really comment on whether that's the proposal is good, bad or indifferent, but I would say that at 5:20 and onwards, and in fact probably after about 4 o'clock, we're not doing our best. And if we're actually making some gutsy decisions for one reason or another, we're just not, I think the idea of starting at 8:30 in the morning and be still doing things, not to mention the staff who have been collected together and they're still here at 5:20 or 5:45 or whatever we finish some days, it's just not the best governance we could do, I don't think. I think maybe we should be actually, and this is partly our discipline, thinking about what we're asking our staff to bring before us all the time to do some of those things. So whatever we do, cramming things into 2 days rather than doing it in a different way doesn't, or more or less often or something. Let's not try and do things after about 4 o'clock in the afternoon by preference, because it just isn't the best we can do, I don't think.
Kevin.
Probably to Mrs. Gardner. How does this fit with staff, and that if it's on a 2-weekly cycle, are we actually getting too close and missing out on time to do stuff? Or are you more comfortable with this?
The difficulty we have is that we are time bound by a lot of our work. So the 2-weekly cycle is necessary for some things. Otherwise, we run into difficulties because we are that tightly programmed. So land and water related matters would be a really good example. We're really tightly programmed into when we have to get to council, when we have to get a decision, when we have to go forward from there. So that's one impact. The 2-weekly cycle is an enormous amount of work to meet. If we're not on the week that we're not here with you, then we're doing papers. So it's a constant revolving door. For us, however.
So it's not necessarily working for staff either.
Well, yes, but I don't think it's the cycle in and of itself. I think you've got some other considerations today. I think it's today. around the action list and around, so, you know, it's not, we've got a work program and we're programmed and we can work to that. But we've also got an action list that comes out of every meeting, and out of every meeting we get a bunch of actions. You've just talked about a number of them. Often they're not programmed. So that means that inside of the program we already have, then we fit other stuff in, and that's when we end up with big agendas, because there's an expectation around when things will be done. So I don't think there is an ideal. We had a discussion as an ELT about whether or not we could, you know, whether or not there was something different we could do. But I think generally we all felt that the 2-week cycle was probably what's necessary for where we're at the moment. Just before Amanda adds something, I'll just add about, seeing it was brought up, the visits around the region. There's some things to consider, and I understand why you find those visits important. So recently, normally when we go to Wellington for the Regional Chief Executives meeting, we meet at Greater Wellington. We were not able to do that this time. There is an increasing level of discomfort inside of other organisations about visitors to their chambers and other things. So I guess what I'm saying to you is that COVID is a reality. We can make plans and then have to cancel and flex, and as we have done previously, or we can accept the reality that we're dealing with and put a pause on moving around the region. I do think there was some consultation with the chair on that particular matter before this paper was put up also.
Brian.
There's two issues. Can I ask, Mr. Chair, that we address them separately?
Oh, absolutely.
So this 2-day versus 3-day thing, if we could just put it to bed.
You mean 2-week versus 3-week?
Yeah, sorry. Put that to bed and then move on to the around the region.
Sure.
Sorry, Amanda.
Amanda?
Yeah, I was just going to add, in terms of the fortnightly cycle, I think this traineum we've had a couple of extra committees than what used to take place in the previous traineum, and also the way councillors wanted those meetings to, the frequency of those meetings, so strategy and planning was twice a quarter, and then with the other extra meetings. Plus this particular couple of days isn't a great example because we've only got one workshop, but normally we are absolutely packed to the gunnels with workshops. Plus we've added councillor alone time, CE councillor time on various cycles. So when you actually add the hours, and also I think, as Sarah mentioned, with the resolutions, but also this, you know, I think my observation this traineum, there's been a real desire to see a lot more information coming via committees and council meetings. So we've actually, you know, some of the data and information committee meetings, strategy and planning, they're big agendas. And what we've found is to actually get the hours to get through the workload and get all those meetings in, the sort of 4 days a month, we feel like we're comfortably filling those. And sometimes we're still got issues hanging over that we're trying. So, you know, we did the extra day last month. A full day of workshops, and that was granted catch up due to COVID, but there's a lot of work being asked for, and a lot of workshops and a lot of papers, and you need time here to deal with that.
So we're speaking specifically on whether or not we wish to have a 2 or a 3 weekly meeting schedule. Kate.
Mine's a question, and it's just, I don't know that everyone understands what everyone is doing, and because tomorrow is it's a one paper report, but audit and risk could have been it was in our books for 3 hours. So there is a meeting tomorrow afternoon as well for audit and risk, but we don't see other people's diaries, and it's a problem with Diligent, I think, or Outlook. So we don't think others are busy necessarily because we can't see the whole meeting schedule.
Your Dysens does send the meeting schedule out on a Friday to show the meetings for these 2 days.
So we also send you the full agenda. You all get that every week, and that has everything on it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that now. I mean, but if we go to that meeting schedule, we'll see all of those. Will it be all of those meetings, or is it just the committee meetings though? Because
Which
there are
meetings?
other
the Ford planner or the schedule.
the Ford planner, because there are other meetings that people attend.
Yep, the Ford planner includes mana to mana, audit and risk, and then we've got a box at the below that includes most of the, you know, like the drop-in centres, the drop-in sessions when we know them, in advance. So we've been
Councillors attending those, yeah.
we've been putting those up on a Tuesday, refreshing it every Tuesday in Diligent. So you've got that full spectrum.
Is Mana to Mana in this draft council calendar, is it?
No, because Mana to Mana met yesterday and the dates were on the agenda to decide, because obviously it's iwi and councillors, so that's a collective
So you've
group
decided
make
on
the
them now?
dates. I wasn't actually there, so I don't know if the dates were decided.
No, we haven't decided on the dates. There wasn't any particular concern about particular dates. There was general comfort with having the meeting on a Tuesday to fit in with council cycle. So that was the guidance we got.
And the other thing we pop in the forward planner is, so the chair obviously has Otago Mural Forum, CDM joint committee meetings, plus the Wellington, there's a whole spectrum of other meetings, which usually are Fridays, which is why we stick to the Wednesday, Thursday, Zone 5, Zone 6, which I think some of you attend. I mean, it's quite a crowded work plan of meetings if you look at it in its entirety.
Well, let's just stick to the question at the moment, which is the 2 or the 3 week. Brian?
Look, I'm not going to die in a ditch in it. I'm not going to move a motion. It's really, I'm just putting it out there, just telling you my individual thoughts. I think really it's probably the people, the councillors that are actually further away from Dunedin that probably have the most sort of voice on this issue. So it's up to you guys. If you're happy with the status quo, that's so be it. Like, Gary, you happy?
Well, I'll ask Alexa first and then Gary and then Carmen.
I'm okay with it, especially if I occasionally do Zoom to, and disperse it. But I see what you mean. But I don't think we very often have a light day. You're talking about light days, but we've got a reasonably light day today. But there's probably been 2 or 3 of those over this whole term. Most of the days are really packed, and I think trying to pack more into them would be too hard given the workload. So I'm happy for it to stay as that. If we felt that we could get it into that might do okay. But by the end of the day, I'm not really up for the really good decision making if we are packing too much in. That's my view.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
I'm okay with it as it is. I think staff.
Gary.
I'm okay with it as it is. I think if staff wanted us to be here less often, then a schedule would have been put to us that was less often than more often. We must be quite an impediment on time that they have available because they're sitting here as opposed to sitting in their offices working, although I'm sure they're working here as well. So, I think council needs to fit in with staff requirements of us, so I'm happy to work with that. And I appreciate the concern around travel, but we sign up for these jobs, we put ourselves forward, and if we need to travel to be here, so be it.
All right, we've had a good discussion on this.
Maybe to withdraw.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. No, but good on you for raising it.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure, Andrew.
It seems to me as the trienniums progress, the workload has increased, and I can't see that tapering off. I look at strategy and planning and in the spatial planning area for urban development, etc., that's starting to crank up as well. So I just think the 2-week cycle, although it's a big commitment from a staff perspective and to a certain degree from a governance perspective, I think that the workload's only going to increase rather than taper off.
All right, let's resolve that issue. Now, the second issue is related to having council meetings and bringing them around the region. You can see the proposal there is to have all of the meetings in Dunedin. I'd have to say I'd find that difficult to accept. And it's been and I would rather work the other way, just quietly, which is, I'll let you speak. Yes, Andrew and Brian. But until COVID is shaping as a danger and a damage, I think we should proceed the other way, and that is roster them. And if there's a problem, we'll encounter that at the time. Andrew, your thoughts?
Thanks for that, Michael. Just my comment is just around the conversation I had with Amanda, and that was very much our understanding was our commitment to visit during a triennium each TA within the region, and we'd fulfilled that obligation. So that's why the schedule is what it is, and obviously the COVID impact as well was part of that consideration.
Brian.
I agree with what you said, Mr. Chair. I think there's always been a reason not to get out, into the region, but we should plan. I think, potentially the COVID is the new normal, so we need to plan. And as we've done previously, if we get to a point where it's not practical, we can always change.
Well, I'll move from the chair then that, and perhaps you'll second, Brian, and then we'll take it as a motion, that visits to Clutha, Waitaki Central be included in the agenda for council meetings in 2022.
Well, Queenstown.
And Central being,
Whatever, anyway.
So I'll use that as the first motion. I have a seconder for that, Brian, and then we'll use this as the framework in which to discuss and debate this issue. Amanda, did you have some information you want to provide to us?
I just wanted to, just to add to that, I think 3 away meetings over essentially what we've got is 8 months before elections. That's one every second month, give or take, out of Dunedin. So there's cost implications of that. Every time we have an away meeting,
I'm into the whoopty on that.
Okay. No, I'm just making you aware that there's cost implications in terms of venue hire, equipment hire, but there's also our staff. So we end up taking about between 10 and 15 staff out to the region. That's fine.
Okay, we're debating this motion.
2, Mr. Chair.
No, well, we've got it at 3. Clutha, Waitaki and Central. Now, talking to the motion. Councillor Robertson.
I'm trying to establish what we want to best achieve from being more present across our region, and the best mechanism for achieving that. And I'm thinking about when we go to a formal public meeting in those other council chambers, which it usually is, we usually don't get people turning up, and we also find it very hard to engage with the other councillors as well. So I'm thinking that mechanism isn't probably our best bet for how we get out into other districts or across our region. I'm thinking that if we do want to make a concerted effort to engage, there's other ways that we could be working in that space. One really good example was the last workshop we had where we had QLDC staff present to us that was really good. A genuine partnership was built up through that working relationship. We've got a number of others working across the region as well in transport, other spaces. Why don't we have a really good think about each district, how we can meaningfully engage? I don't think that a formal council meeting is actually going to increase engagement at all. It's not the way our communities want to work with us. I think, there's a whole lot of logistical questions. Every second meeting being away doesn't make sense. Yes, we could host essentially what could be Zoom meetings from other council chambers. That's fine, we could do that. I just don't think it's going to achieve what we're aiming to achieve. Thanks.
Councillor Forbes.
I completely agree with that. I just don't think that we've seen the value of engagement and having our full council meetings and all our staff in the regions. But I do want us to look for more ways, better ways of engaging with them. And I don't think we should just ignore that budget. There should be budget put aside to engage there. I'm not sure exactly how we do it, but could certainly come up with ideas, but there may be things that we can engage around. I mean, certainly when we go and do pest control meetings and things like that, we get a lot of people there. Do we broaden that? Those sorts of things. So let's start having a look at where we can broaden our engagement and be about engagement rather than be about taking our council meeting somewhere else. Thank you.
Barry.
I can completely agree with the sentiment. I'm a wee bit worried about jamming it into the next 6 months prior to the next election. I think it is definitely something that has been lacking, and I like the idea of spending more time scheduled for more meetings around, rather than say 1 per TA per triennium. Maybe we look to 2 or 3. But I think it's something that we as a council, having spent 3 years together, know that it's an issue and it's not working for us. So that is something over the next 6 months we could look to put in place for the next new council and new triennium, so that they start, whoever that is, with a schedule in place and staff are then able to plan that for maybe 2, maybe 3 full council meetings. I think they should be full council meetings, maybe held in other TA's chambers as opposed to the other more specific committees that we have, because I think they are more staff specific. But I think we have an opportunity, given the 3 years we've had together, to be able to set in place a really good plan for the next council, because you could have a whole heap of new people around the table who then don't understand where we've gotten to and the issues we faced. So very good sentiment, but I think we spend the next 6 months planning that for the next triennium.
Councillor Hillary, and then Brian. Oh, sorry. Right. And then Kevin. No, not you're not used to doing that. Go. Sorry.
I would like to develop or build on a wee bit the last speakers and suggest that instead of having a meeting in other places, in one of our regular council meetings in other places, we look to having something more like an open workshop in different areas where we can go along, and instead of just saying anyone who wants to come along and 3 people come along and we spend a lot of money having dinner with a territorial authority, which seems to me a lot of money, ratepayers' money spent on doing something that isn't necessarily serving our community. But if we, instead of that, went to, for example, spent a day in North Otago and invited Noslam along and rabbit people along and looked at what we're doing in that area and said, why don't we have some of our versions by workshop, I would be saying to let people come along and tell us what's happening with different groups in that area, which means anybody who's actually very reasonably active in the area is probably part of that group, be they rabbits, be they water, be they whatever it is. And so let them tell us how what we're doing in their region is making a difference to them, or what problems there are or whatever. So actually engage with groups in the community in some places, and that doesn't require all our staff to be going along there. And in fact, to some extent, we could go ourselves, take a bus and go ourselves, and then we could make sure that somebody is taking notes about what we're being told, and we could report back. It doesn't need to make a whole council meeting thing of that. And I think that would provide a better listening opportunity to the community. That's my suggestion.
Brian, and then Kevin, and then Kate.
Yeah. Look, I 100% agree with those speakers that said there's been a lack of value in terms of going around the region with council meetings. I accept that 100%, but I'm still optimistic that if we actually just tried to do it right, that it actually has some significant potential value. So it's sort of building upon what some of the other speakers have said. So, for example, if we went to Central Otago, what we should be asking for are key and significant reports on key local issues. So it might be a yearly report on rabbits and an understanding we're going to do something about it. It might be a yearly report on Lake Hayes. We previously had, for example, meetings regarding Glenorchy. It might be, and we actually had a presentation in the evening and a workshop by a professor from Christchurch. There's no reason that it can't have significant value. We've just, typically what we do is we just turn up with any old agenda item and expect hundreds of people to come through the door, and nobody comes. They're not interested. So, for example, if we have a significant report on local issues that's in the newspaper, we've got issues to decide, the people will come. and have workshops around that. To assume that just having meetings in Dunedin, we've got issues in Dunedin as well. You know, we just need to up our game. We're a regional council and we need to get out there and up our game in Dunedin and wherever we are. Surely we can do better.
Thank you. Brian, Kevin.
I am very much for increasing our exposure with our constituents throughout the region, but I think we do it in a means other than taking a full council meeting. Heartened to hear what Councillor Scott is about organising agendas around local issues. That is a good part, but I think we are far better off working around what we're doing in pest control, land and water plans, iwi discussions at the moment we're having in the Waitaki with land and water plan, and stakeholder groups like NOSLAM and Kakanui irrigators and the likes around land and water plans, and building upon that and making the issues topical and working with. But re-COVID, the greatest thing you can have in times of uncertainty is certainty. So that's why I'm very much in favour of it all being in Dunedin for the next 6 months. It will be 6 to 8 months, whatever it is. That gives us the certainty that we can plan to, other than being locked down. So we can't come to here, we're simply back on Zoom, but everything else is organised, it's structured, we know where it's happening. There will be a COVID outbreak in the South Island at some stage. Hopefully there won't be, but if that happens, we're not upsetting anyone. We're not saying, well, you never came here for COVID. I'm part of a regional trust that has been having those issues because we're promised to be somewhere COVID's hit. Now they're saying, well, you're not coming. So look, in times of uncertainty, go to what's certain. So that's, but keep on arranging times and opportunities for greater dialogue and building on what we're doing. So I'm pretty much in favour with what we've got here.
Kate.
I think we need to focus our meetings around issues and around where opportunities of building relationships are. I don't think going to Queenstown for the long-term plan, for example, was wise. We spent the time in a room without a view, without having a really, we had one very good presentation, but we didn't really make the most of being in that area. I think what we need to do is plan workshops and those agendas of meetings out in the area of value better and frame them. I mean, I put it out there some time ago that the MPI have asked us, Janet Gregory, that there's a real opportunity for us to go and meet people in Lindis. We haven't done that. I don't know how we can do that. I don't think it has to be around a council meeting, but what we don't have is a mechanism for us to collectively say, actually, we should be up there, and to put that in our workload. And that's the problem, actually, that we don't seem to be able to mess ourselves to do that sort of thing, which we should be doing. I have a view that we are missing, we shouldn't be just focusing on going to councils. I think we should be at Puketeraki. We should be going to other marae or other iwi meeting spots and using those opportunities. I think us going to Moraki or and then there are other opportunities to do that. I think we're not doing that well, and that should be once a year. We are on with our partners out there doing that right around Otago. So that's where I'm from. It doesn't have to be around formal meetings, but it should be meetings that we add value. The Oamaru one was brilliant. That day out, I think we all collectively really got heads around some really big issues there, and it's generated probably the most collegial actions that we've had as far as understanding forestry and carbon forestry. I think equally we've had some fantastic days out on other ones, but yeah, we need to focus on. The one in Cromwell was bereft because it was so short. It could have been really good, but we cut ourselves too fine on our timing. So we didn't get the value out of that workshop or that tiki tour that we could have.
Andrew.
Mr. Chair, yeah, just a couple of things. Sort of agree with what
Kevin has said with regards to, and Gary, with regards leaving the status quo in terms of what's presented today, in terms of the scheduled meeting in Dunedin. But just on reflection on just some of the comments, I think we can't, I suppose, bind the next council, just picking up Gary's point, bind the next council to a schedule or whatever. However, we can certainly give some advice at the end of the triennium around what was successful or what we believe was successful in terms of moving around the district. I feel on reflection of those visits, the value of the networking with other councillors at the front end of the triennium, I think, is really, really important. So we've got those contacts there where they feel comfortable picking up the phone and talking directly to us on a one-on-one basis or whatever, and vice versa. So I think that's valuable. Going out for the meal, well, I mean, that's I suppose one way to sort of achieve that networking, but it could be done in other ways. But I think the real value has been the site visits, and Kate's just picked up on the North Otago ones. But I was just reflecting on the various topics that we have learnt about, or with site visits, etc. There was Glenorchy Natural Hazards, Lake Hayes, Central Otago Wild and Conifer Group, Noslam, Carbon Forestry in North Otago, Flood Scheme in South Otago, Clutha District, and Macrae's Gold Mine visit, for example. And I know I haven't got them all there, but they are really, really valuable. And I appreciate staff have identified, along with governance, topics of interest. And going forward, I'm sure that collectively we can sort of identify what's important to us from a governance perspective and what's important from a staff perspective as we go forward. If we're here for the next triennium, I think that sort of system as a basis to sort of direct our contact with whatever TA on whatever topic that is relevant at the time. So status quo in terms of the schedule, but I think some learnings we can share with the next council.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Noon, and you, Councillor Malcolm. I think stick with what we've got. I mean, there's a meeting of the rabbits at Meraki shortly, and I think, councillors being there also is something that we have been lacking at a lot of meetings. 2 or 3 of us just consistently saying, look, can you go, can you not go? That's also where you've got your learnings as well. So, and also appreciate what you say, Mrs. Verco, because you're the people who have to put it all together for us. And I think, as you say, there's a lot more behind the scenes. But I like the idea for the next triennium, and we hope we're all here, that we can build on that. And would it be possible too, if you're having another day like your Lindis, and I hope we get to do that, Councillor Wilson, or a day like you've just talked about, Councillor Noon, that there could be some councillors from those areas invited to come along. I think that's the key part that we're missing. The links are there. We're just not taking the opportunity to just pick up the phone and say, we're going to have this great day. We'd love it if you could join us. Your knowledge would be so important and helpful. Can you be there, please? That's, to me, is the wee bit we're missing.
Okay, well, far from me to be the dissenting voice, role I'm not used to. I have to say our name is the Otago Regional Council, not the Dunedin City Council. And so having all the meetings here is, again, further illustration of how Dunedin-centric this organisation is. As somebody who makes a 450k round trip today and continually does so, and my constituents, if they want to appear here, have to as well. So, yes, I feel that this is a non-giving relationship. I have
Sorry
to say,
you feel that way, Councillor.
from a central point of view.
I do want to hurt you. But...
And I think that my constituents, if there was a problem, I have to say, with us going to places, it was because we didn't do it properly, not because we were there.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's what we're trying to say, though, Michael, is that the people aren't showing up.
That's because we're not telling them that we're there and inviting them and making things relevant to them.
Making it relevant to them, I think, is the key point.
But so I think the motion can lapse for want of a seconder, Brian, or do you want to still put the motion here? You've heard the conversation.
I mean, I seconded it, but I'm quite happy to withdraw it because I mean, we're on the hiding to nothing. But we've made,
We are. We've done our best. It was a valiant fight, but we lost it.
I'm happy to second it if he wants to withdraw it. 'Cause
No,
I'm actually for it. It's just how we set those meetings
I
up.
think we're all for it. It's how we do it.
Okay,
It's,
put them
I'm,
All right, we'll
yeah.
put the motion there.
Yeah.
The aim is that there be council meetings,
Yeah.
and I think we'll leave it that way rather than a council meeting, if you know what I mean. Council meetings around the region in 2022. That's prior to the next election. All right, so we'll take that as the motion, seconded by Brian. Or does Brian want to move it and seconded by Kate?
no, you're moving.
Okay, all right. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
All right, the vision called for. Councillor Calvert? No, you can't abstain. Not allowed to.
It's not clear enough.
Yeah.
We're not giving.
No, council meetings around the region.
When you say council meeting,
Yeah.
I'm presuming what you mean is
Yeah.
a council meeting, whereas.
No, it doesn't mean. I've just said that it didn't. So it'd be nice.
No, it says motions.
Well, that's the motion.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. No, it's not. And
It says council meetings.
meetings,
Yeah.
that's right, around
So
the
it's
region.
Council meeting.
But
But
it
as a
might
council
be,
meeting, that's
it
not a
might
pest
be of
control
the
meeting.
strategy and policy committee. It might be of the governance committee. It might be of the implementation committee. It might be a full council meeting. It's council meetings with a small c, not with a large c.
That's what I was wanting to listen for, whether it was a.
There you
big
go.
C or a little C.
Yeah, well, that's better.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
I
it's a
still,
small
can I
C.
have one more query on that?
Yeah,
So
sure.
you're saying council meetings, that sounds like exactly what we already have, formal meetings
No.
in those places. Or are you talking, is a council meeting also defined as a meeting around natural hazards or a meeting
Sure.
around
For one-
irrigation or?
For one, we'll define it
infrastructure.
as in either, in council meetings being defined as either council meeting with a large C, committee meetings, or
Site
workshops.
Yeah, site visits.
Well,
Hmm.
I don't still understand the motion, sorry, because obviously we're going to have meetings across the region, so nobody can vote against this. Otherwise, it's going to mean that we can't go and have a meeting about rabbits in Alexandra. But we don't want we're trying here to set a schedule for council meetings, and it's not giving clarity on that at all. It's just, we might sometimes have meetings on anything, anywhere. Of course, we're going to do that.
If it's telling the staff.
Sorry, if it's telling the staff something, I think we should be very clear what we're telling the staff, because if a resolution usually involves the staff, if it isn't telling the staff they need to do something, then that's a different sort of resolution, and they can heave a sigh of relief and think, "Oh, if I don't understand it, it doesn't matter because we're not telling them to do anything." If we're telling them to do anything, I think we should know what we're asking them to do even.
I think we'll go back to the original motion, Brian. All right,
Could we have it up? Because,
sure.
please. I
The
think it would
council
be
meetings be
really clear.
scheduled for Clutha, Waitaki and Central during the 2022 year.
As per the schedule, is it?
So that would be, no, not,
Schedule says no meetings.
No.
Okay.
Meetings that are identified on the schedule?
yes, they'll be identified.
Okay, so those meetings.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to vote against.
Alexa,
Hang on.
I'm going to vote against it too.
Armour.
Can I have some more clarity?
So where it says council
Yeah.
meeting,
Yes.
those will be scheduled for
Yeah.
Clutha,
Yeah.
Waitaki, Central in 2022.
Now, I did listen, and you talk about meetings. Could you have meetings / site visits? Because
you
that,
could.
Or briefings.
Yeah.
Or briefings, because that-
Briefings is in there.
that would be better. Could we have that up, and then can I see it, please? I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want.
I thought we'd gone back to the.
You know, you've gone back to the original motion first.
original
Yeah.
motion.
I can't have it up. I've got to vote, right?
Sorry, darling.
Bloody hell. Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
I want to foreshadow an alternative.
No, you've got to vote on this one first. Just say yes.
No, because I don't think it does what any of us have asked us to do. No, I'm going to be no on that, and I thought I will.
Okay, then the motion is lost.
And can I do an alternative?
Yeah, no, there's a new motion on the floor, and I understand you want to move one.
Thank you.
The motion is lost 4-6.
It's that we adopt the schedule for council meetings as proposed. That's the schedule.
Yeah.
And that we ask staff to combine 2 of those meetings outside Dunedin to to be combined with appropriate community site visits or briefings in 2022. Now, where those are, I think, is a discussion for you and Andrew and the CEO as you look at the year.
Okay.
That's how I'd be seeing you doing it. But they could be visits or they could be briefings, but they're appropriate to that area, wherever you go to.
Right. It's really a motion, I think, that reads that we adopt the schedule with the amendment that 2 of the meetings on the schedule be outside of Dunedin. Is that correct?
Outside of Dunedin, but combined with an appropriate
That's the key to it.
community site visits or briefings in those areas.
There you go.
We could do site visits without a meeting. So we could arrange a day of a site visit.
Oh, that's the problem that I was asking for.
I was going to ask for Kate to amend her motion to say.
No, your motion's.
Oh, listen, I don't want to waste any more time.
I don't think we'll get people going to site visits if they're not combined around a meeting.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm combining it to them.
I'm happy
Sorry.
to second your motion. I'll second your motion.
Right.
I'm happy to second.
All right, seconded. Do we understand the motion?
Is
Yes.
it
Do you want to do that?
point of clarification?
Point of clarification, yes, are you going?
Yes, certainly.
Is that sufficiently different to the existing motion that has just failed to be actually put under?
Yes, it is, because the other one was council meetings. This is 2 council meetings, and
it's tagged
to a particular activity.
So it's 2 rather than 3, and it's tagged to
I
activities.
vote against that we just move to a
Right, so there it is.
vote.
Right. All those, division, please. I'll go to division straight away. Councillor Calvert.
I wanted to ask.
Hey, you got it there?
You need to take with or without amendments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with 2 of the meetings on the schedule be outside of Dunedin combined with appropriate community site visits. Yeah.
I'm voting against.
And briefings, you said, and briefings.
Well, briefings it had in there. It's workshop briefing days. Yeah. So it's included in there.
Yeah, I can
Councillor
take
Forbes.
his work together.
Yes, Councillor
Yes.
Pope.
Yes.
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 It's better than what it was.
No,
Yes.
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 yeah,
Okay, the motion's passed by 8 votes to 2. Moving on. Thank you, Amanda. Now, are you going to stay there for the next one as well?
And the next one.
Quarterly Actions Register Update. Now, what you're meant to do is look at what those actions are and do you have any queries related to them? Is that my understanding, Amanda?
Yes, and so that the whole of council has a whole of oversight of all the collective actions together as opposed to broken down. They get reported to each committee, but this gives the overview.
Yes, go for your life.
The other part of the reason why we give you these actions collectively is so that you can evaluate how much work there is in addition to what you've agreed in terms of the work program for the LTP. So I think that's also an important consideration. We have a very stacked work program, but we do continue to get multiple actions out of each meeting, some that are not planned or budgeted for. And so part of providing this for you is so that you can see what kind of commitment staff are working on as a result of decisions made.
Okay, I think that's understood.
Yep.
But there are a series of gaps that run down action taken across this on the pages. Does that mean, Amanda, that there is no action at all?
No, that means that the actions that have been taken haven't been recorded in the register.
Would it be a good idea to register it, put that in there so that we can see it?
Yep, although sometimes it's it's fairly straightforward and the action is just being done and it will be reported back by the date that is beside it, as opposed to there being steps.
What I also think would be useful is when we get into a position where there's a big time gap between when that was asked for and to here. Can you identify any of those here where we are and why we might be? Like, for example, I'm looking at some in the 26th of May, and there don't appear to be any actions against them, and yet we're into November. Now, I think there's bound to be some action, but there hasn't been added to it. I see quite a few came out of the Finance Committee on the 26th of May.
Yes, I think those actions are underway, but there's not, I mean, we could put underway in the action taken.
I do think that would be useful.
Okay,
Otherwise,
that's right.
we're
well,
under
we
the
haven't,
impression that,
asked staff,
happening.
we haven't
That's
asked general managers to put those details in, but we can do that.
In the last council, can I just say, I think we worked on a percentage basis, didn't we? We said how much of...
No.
No, that's what you see in the quarterly report.
Yep.
Okay. It's just a how far along, in other words, how far down the train are we?
Well, I guess you've set deadlines for when you want this information to be come back to council. So that's the dates that staff are working on, which means they're factoring that into their work program, but they're not factoring in percentage updates on how far away they are along.
Perhaps if you had in that column on track, if they are, so as that the general manager did need to lend their mind to whether that action is on track, in case it isn't.
Yes.
So if it isn't, then it might need to be, hey, we're going to need longer for this or something. So if somebody has lent their mind to it and said, yes, it's on track, then they know that it's...
Sure. This does come to EL. So this is on the, it's reviewed weekly by general managers. So it's very much front, it's on people's minds. It's not like it's a side document that gets forgotten about. So I think it's safe to say that these are on track and that if they weren't on track, there would be reporting back.
Well, the one that we've already spoken about one this morning that said it was coming back in late November. And now we've got 15th of December on it.
I've got Yep, I've had an update. So they are working on a specific plan. This the dates because obviously, so that'll come back to you very soon. A plan for that.
I'm
so
just saying that's exactly something that starts off being something and then it can trickle through the sand a bit. So as if it says on track for a particular date, then, and if somebody has said late November or late beginning November or whatever Richard said when he said it,
yep.
Then
so we can put on track. We can add an extra word in there if that's helpful.
Sorry, I just got one question to ask you and then I'll come to the questions here. I'll give you an example of that. There's one, I think you're meant, it's the bottom of page 17 and it's to do with the Finance Committee and it's the outcome of the interim $2 fee. Invite a standing group of ORC and it's got the 11th of November.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sort of thing that I'd be expecting there to be a sort of a gap filled in there. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
As in how quickly are we progressing to it? Because what's today? It's today the 8th or the 9th? No, it's the 10th. So that's tomorrow. So it's just what I'm saying is that it would be quite useful for us next time, not today, next time we do this, Amanda, just to see where we are in each of those and just say, oh, we've struck a problem. This isn't going to be ready now on this day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sorry, Carmen, and then Gretchen.
And Kevin.
It's actually Kevin.
Oh, was it Kevin, was it? Kevin
So-
first then?
I know, Council.
All right.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question. So we've got 18 new actions and 10 are unplanned, and actions are often unbudgeted. That's correct, isn't it? So I know this is probably a finance thing, but because we've got this action register, is there any way that there could be another column? So when the money is allocated, because it's unbudgeted for, as councillors, we can see? I know this is a action register.
I think it's,
but
yeah.
Is
if I
it too
could-
tricky?
It's not that it's tricky,
Right.
but I think what I would ask you to think about is
Yeah.
what is it that you're wanting to get from this?
Yeah.
Because we can report till the cows come home on all kinds of different things, but there's a time component to that, and there is sometimes we don't know what things are going to cost. If it's unbudgeted and we can't fit it in within existing budgets, then we have to come back to you for money. So you would know if we were coming back to you for money and we can't squish it into something else. We might have a contract that's 10,000 under, so we can squish it into there or whatever. I suppose I'm just mindful that we report these individual actions to each committee, so you get the detail for each committee. And I'm just wanting to be cautious about how much reporting we end up doing. Otherwise, we'll be a slave to the reporting and that just takes up more time. So I'm not saying no, but I'm just saying, can we just be really clear about what it is that you're wanting to achieve from this reporting?
But I'm sorry, I'm reading this and these are policy actions, is that right? So these are motions passed by the council to say, please do this.
Yes, they are.
And this then is, well, this is how we're going on doing that, and there's the due date over there.
Yes.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is you get these twice, because you get the full list, and then at each committee you get the actions that are relevant to the committees that are reported on.
Kevin.
So look, I don't expect any more from this report other than it is underway or it's on track. And why I'm looking at that is because when we look at these 18 new actions and 10 that involved unplanned or whatever, that stuff, that's saying to me we're all of a sudden increasing workloads. And the key thing as a governor I want to know is where we've got to step in and assist you with reprioritising, which to me will be the key part of how you actually get the outcomes that we're trying to get. So key thing would be underway or on track. Either way, the wording doesn't really perturb me, but it's more finding when a word like reprioritisation beside it would be, and I know it goes to the committees, but I'd also like it on this. We could put it both to the committee and that, and we know that we have to step in and start assisting. And I know, Mrs. Gardner, you'll come to us for that, but I think that's a good reminder that those, and even if that's left there, that we're actually working on, we're jamming too much extra in, or we need to, we can handle the extra, but we need to reprioritise. So I think that's, as a governance, that's the sort of thing I'd like.
And then Gretchen.
Sorry, Gretchen, I'm not trying to butt in. I just wanted to ask Councillor Malcolm, would you like to see that reprioritisation in a different colour? To me, that would then stand out. That's just me. I'm more a visual person.
Yeah. No, it doesn't really worry me, but I mean, that makes good sense.
Yes.
Bang it in red.
Yes, just something different. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Gretchen.
I want to know the pressure points, really.
Yeah.
Gretchen.
Thank you. Agree with Kevin that this is all I expect from this report to this committee. It's a conglomeration of all the actions so that it's all transparent in one place.
Yep.
You can see what's going on. However, I'd like to move the recommendations and a third one, that this report gets referred to the Audit and Risk Committee for consideration of the of the processes we've got in place to ensure that we're meeting the Local Government Act requirements on us. Yeah, to do with that's pretty much the motion, but speaking to that if I can, it's around.
We need a second first. So the motion is that this
gets referred to Audit and Risk
for
consideration of our process. Yeah, okay.
You just get,
okay,
and then
that's
you can
fine,
speak.
and then
Do we have a second for that? Yes, from Councillor Scott. So go for your life, Gretchen.
Yeah, and it picks up on all the points that other people have made, including the CE. Just looking have we got the best process in place now that we've seen it all in one place to ensure that we are considering this as a lot? When you see it all together, it's we've got there what the financial considerations are, and it should give consideration to how they will be funded, but we haven't done that here because it's not the right committee to do that, and I think it should be done somewhere, which is why I'd like it to be thought about further, at least in audit and risk, because we haven't planned for these through, we haven't consulted on them necessarily. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of them at all. I just don't think we've looked at it. And I think probably we've got good processes in place. I don't know that. Could we improve on them? I don't know that as well. It needs to go to audit and risk. Now's not the time to think about that in this committee, but I do think it needs to be thought about.
Sure. Brian, do you want to speak to the motion?
No, all good.
Cool. Hillary.
I see Gretchen's point, and I think that is a valid point for us to have a look at. I would suggest that as a collective lot of items, they come to audit and risk only, not here first, because we don't want to look at them in each committee and then look at them here and then look at them there. I think they should come, following your suggestion, that they should come, the collective one should come direct to audit and risk, and that audit and risk would then be responsible for referring them, if there's a problem there that we're causing, referring them back to finance or to wherever is causing if we consider it audit and risk that they're causing a problem.
My point is more around the ensuring we've got processes in place. Holistically, it's not to address each one by one as they keep coming.
No, I'm just saying as a collection.
Well, when that item comes to audit and risk, Gretchen, would you like to follow that through with them and have that discussion?
Sorry?
When it goes to audit and risk, if this motion passes, pop down to audit and risk and explain.
Yeah, I'm welcome to do that anytime, I understand.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just suggesting it comes to audit and risk only, the collective one, rather than to here and then to audit and risk.
No, but I think the idea was to refer the item to audit and risk for the purposes that Gretchen set out.
Is it meeting the local government act
the purposes
requirements?
That Gretchen set out be in your minutes?
What now?
Yeah, no, when we do the minutes of this meeting, because
we can
just to add up, cool.
Including the part about the local government act would be helpful, thanks.
All right. Do we need any more discussion on this, really?
We do have.
Okay. Kevin.
You got me, Gaston. Look, really good picking up Councillor Robertson financial considerations, which you've dropped down to legislative and risk considerations, and which really does send it to audit and risk. And I would probably want it there sooner than later. But there is, and I think we need to really read that one, there is delivery risk to existing work programs with additional actions. So that is the part that we need to have looked at very carefully to ensure that we are actually going to get the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So very happy for it to go to audit and risk, but that's the part that I'm actually not too worried about the money, because we'll have to do what we have to do if we've asked for something, but it's around the delivery is the key to it to me. So,
Andrew.
Just want to make a point, and I agree with where Gretchen's coming from. I just want to make a point about paragraph 6 when it talks about 18 new actions, and at the LTP considerations, there were a number of motions passed that we asked for further work investigation into what such and such work would look like from a cost perspective. Did it fit into our strategic thinking or whatever? So all I'm saying, the 10 involved unplanned work streams or whatever, some of those may well have stemmed from a recommendation that didn't have a budget line item with it when we adopted it at the LTP, annual plan consideration. That's just the point I'm making. That's all.
All right.
Can I just ask a question? If it's to come to both, and I can see the point in all, that means it audit court. If we have like it's tomorrow, it won't go onto the agenda tomorrow. So do you, it goes on the agenda for the next audit and risk and quarterly? I mean, the timing sort of, or do we, when
I
if we
think-
know it's coming here, go to tomorrow's audit and risk?
Well, I think by its very nature, it's a real-time rolling document because you make decisions all the time that need to be added. So it's not static.
So if it comes as a quarterly report to audit and risk, does tomorrow's audit and risk, and that's always going to be the case, they'll fit in like that. Does tomorrow's audit and risk committee have this report that hasn't?
No, it would have the most up-to-date report. So it might not be the same. It might have new actions added.
So we intend it would come.
No, sorry.
This quarterly report is what?
Okay, the motion is to refer this report to Audit Office. If there's any updates that come from that, then they come to that.
So
It's as simple as that.
you would look at the process from there, Hillary.
Yeah.
Would that be that each quarter, whatever the state of that?
No, all that is happening is that this particular report is coming to you for further consideration.
Yeah, and then we're going to see if that process is right and then come back with a recommendation that says so. Yeah,
Practicality.
yeah, it might be.
Is it then on the meeting, an additional item on the agenda for audit and risk?
Yes, it is.
For tomorrow?
Oh, no.
No.
It'll be the one after that. When's the one after that?
After
But they'll always be in
After
step like this,
Yeah.
probably.
No, but that's something that we might decide, and audit and risk that actually has got to be stepped the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's part of the process that we're trying to
Yes, so
sort out.
it's not this particular report, is a correction that you want to come to audit and risk, it is each quarter
concept.
audit.
No. I'm going to clarify
It
this.
is this.
The motion is only this report
Every time.
for further consideration.
Yep.
There are no other motions on the table. What's going to happen in the future is going to happen in the future, but it's not relevant to
Yeah,
this.
once we've examined the process, we might say from now on,
Yeah.
we need this report prior to or after or whatever. Yeah, that's what we're going to
I'll
examine.
seek the leave of audit and risk tomorrow to add it onto the agenda.
All right, go for your life.
Cool.
Carmen.
I just wanted to thank you, Councillor Robertson, because that's probably what I really should have said before when I was asking Mrs. Gardner about, the money thing. So I appreciate that for clarifying it for me and taking that up. Happy to vote on it.
Okay.
Yep.
Can
All right. We've got a mover and a seconder.
Just one
Have
question.
you got more to say?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
Man.
It's good not doing that. It's good not having to look this way and say, please be quiet, councillor. I don't have to do that today. Could I, asking our CE, if this is a historic document, so it's tracing things going forward. So, for instance, if there was something that was going awry in that Stratton planning, or let's say the finance, because we're referring to me and my co-chair. So if it was a financing happening, that action will come straight to finance committee or the closest committee, I assumed.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, good. Thank you. That's good. Perfect. Thanks for the clarity.
You okay?
I'm really good.
You sure now?
Yeah.
All right. Motion is moved, seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So that's all three.
Can I check who moved and seconded?
Councillor Robertson moved and Councillor Scott seconded. All right, moving on to the next one. Now, I'm going to propose from the chair, we're going to have the discussion, but that this item be referred to the first triennium meeting of the new council. Yes, that's right. So it's the first triennium meeting on the new council.
You meaning to?
So that would be what date is that set? At the moment, it's scheduled for
26th of October.
26th of October, next year. So
Just
the
about
idea,
this year.
and can I just explain the reason for moving that?
Oh, this will be interesting.
It's a good one. Because that is the appropriate place in which to have that discussion. I don't think it's appropriate to suddenly provide job descriptions for persons who have been elected under the old system. So you don't suddenly change their job description halfway through it. So the idea was that this would take effect have the discussion, but take effect from the first triennium meeting of the new council. Do I have a seconder for that?
And I would second it, but I suggest that the motion reads that we would recommend this to be discussed at the first meeting of the next triennium, or something that involves
Or recommends this report to be discussed at?
Yes.
No, I'm just going to move that this item be discussed at.
Why are we binding a new council to solve something?
You're not binding a new council. You're just recommending it to them to discuss.
I'm just thinking that this report.
Perhaps you could just let me be chair. Yeah. As a result of that, I have a mover and a second. It's a procedural motion.
Can we?
No, it's a procedural motion. Okay.
Is
this item?
Councillor Chair Knowles, is it possible it's up for us to read? I'd
Sure.
like to read it.
So that this item,
Just get an idea.
7.3, be referred to the triennium meeting of, did you say October 2022?
Yeah, 26th of October.
I'd say just October though, because those dates are very draft, because it depends on gazetting and all that jazz.
Right. Have we got clarifications? It's a procedural motion. It's a procedural motion.
I'm not sure that is a procedural motion.
Actually, again, I'm not asking for your opinion.
Let's find out.
It's a procedural motion.
To find out whether it is.
It's a procedural motion.
I think the chair is allowed to describe something as a procedural
I am
motion.
the chair.
Do you want to adjourn?
No, I want to read you the relevant standing order. Okay.
Why do we do that?
So the procedural order. What's this last night? Excuse me. Have you got it in front of you, Amanda?
I'm just pulling it up. So procedural motion.
Here we are, 26, 55. Right. A procedural motion to close or adjourn, here it is. Any member will take precedent over any member except the point of order and rights of reply. If the procedural motion is seconded, the chairperson must put it to the vote immediately without discussion or debate.
What constitutes
A procedural motion.
A procedural motion is to close or adjourn a debate. This is adjourning this particular debate until the date.
No, we haven't had a chance for questions or debate.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
You're missing. You're really. No. Excuse me. I'm calling for order. All right.
No, you're creating this order.
No, here we go again.
Used to disrupt for long things.
That the meeting be adjourned to the next order. So this is a motion. Please, if you want to find it on your things, it's section 24.2, procedural motions, under standing orders. Procedural motions may adjourn a debate that the meeting be adjourned to the next ordinary meeting unless the member states an alternative time and place. That has just been stated. And that the item being discussed should be adjourned to a specified time and place and not be further discussed at the meeting. That is section 24.2, subsection C. All right. All that you're asking to do now is that it's a procedural motion has been set that this item be referred to the first meeting of the triennial meeting or the triennium meeting of October 2022.
Oh, Brian's asking which one it was, sorry. Michael.
Can I just...
Which?
Section 24.2 C.
Michael?
It's the whole section is section 24 under procedural motions on page 55 of your standing orders.
So can I just clarify, 24.2 talks about discussion or discuss when a procedural motion kicks in, it sounds like it's midstream or it's after the item has had some amount of discussion.
No,
Yeah.
I've got the same problem you've got.
that is not correct.
Well, could you read 24?
Sure. A procedural motion to close or adjourn a debate will take precedence over any other business except points of order and rights of reply. If the procedural motion is seconded, the chairperson must put it to the vote immediately without discussion or debate.
So
There is nothing there that says that the item needs to be debated before the procedural motion can be moved.
Ask a question of the Chief
Sure.
Executive. Yeah. Your interpretation, Sarah, of
So
24.2 and 25.2.
I'm going to 25.2, which says procedural motions to close or adjourn a debate, which is effectively what you're doing, 'cause you're pushing the matter to another time. Any member who has not spoken on the matter under debate. So it has to be under debate, the matter under debate.
No, it's not my interpretation as chairman.
Well,
And I'm the chair.
yes, I fully respect that you're the chair, but I've been asked for my advice from the chair of the regional council, which I'm now giving. So 25.2, any member who has not spoken on the matter under debate. There has been no opportunity for anyone to speak on the matter at all. So what I'm saying is my reading of that is it should be at least commence debate. And if you go to B, that the motion under debate. So there are references to being under debate. You are not in debate.
Thank you.
Have a chance to ask questions before we actually get to debate.
Nothing to stop. You can ask any question you like.
You wouldn't have us before.
Well, no, well, we can go like that if you want, but I'm happy to answer any question you like. I've explained the reason why it's been moved as a traineum. If you want to ask, sorry, because this seeks to put job descriptions upon folk who were not elected with those job descriptions. So it is seeking to retrospectively impose a description upon a title that they currently do not have.
Mr. Chair, I'm only speaking for myself here,
Sure.
but the outcome may well be that. But I think we need to have a discussion before we get to that point. I have some sympathy for what you're saying, but I feel that we need to actually have a discussion and hear from councillors about this particular topic rather than just
right.
heading down the pathway that you're suggesting.
Is that the feeling of the meeting?
Yes.
All right. Okay, well then, Brian, you introduced this topic. Would you like to kick it off and we'll at least have a discussion about it?
Could staff introduce the paper?
I take the paper as read.
I'm happy to follow staff's and put some work into it. It would be appropriate, and then I can speak.
I would like to hear staff.
Do you have anything else to add that is not already in this paper, Amanda?
I would like to draw your attention to some points.
Yeah, I'll defer to the Chief Executive.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak. I would just like to draw your attention to the points in the paper, in particular, the references of the documents where the job description comes from. So actually, you could argue that what we have done is simply take the pieces of the job that are held in other documents quite clearly as referenced and put them into one document so that the roles are clear and understood and you don't have to go searching yourself for the documents that relate and guidance that relates to the roles. So I'm referring particularly to paragraph 4. So I just wanted to make that clear, given the point that Councillor Laws is talking about, which is that this is new. And I guess what I'm saying is actually all this information is available already. It's just been consolidated for the purpose of a job description.
Brian, do you want to talk further?
Sure. I mean, the first thing I would like to say that in all my time on council, I have never seen a situation where a person chairing the meeting has gone out of their way to shut down the meeting.
Not shut it down, that's why you're talking.
The meeting debate. And okay, you're slowly changing your tack, but only because you're being pressurised. And I must say, you as the chair of this committee have been previously very supportive, as I understand it, of the job description approach for the deputy and for the chair. I must say that the background for actually having this job description was basically because of my concerns around the deputy chair role in particular. And I'd have to say that the example of the last 10 minutes is an example that I'm hoping that we can move beyond. The job description ideally is to set up an expectation of behaviour, an expectation of responsibility, and to put it in sync with what we expect for this organisation as a whole. And I think what staff have come up with here in terms of aligning things with values and responsibilities, I commend. And if the current deputy chair thinks that these roles are unsuitable, then I would prefer that you actually said so, because in my view, these job descriptions are very appropriate and we should get on with it as an organisation.
Well, since you've asked the question specifically of me, I'm happy to reply.
Yeah.
The reason that I would think that it would be best handled at the triennium is that so you have very clear expectations before you elect both your chair and your deputy about what you expect of those two people. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, both the current chair and deputy were selected without those expectations being raised or expected of them. The moment that you put expectations in a place, it's a bit like a code of conduct, Brian. The moment that you put expectations in place, then you can hold that person to account for performing or not performing those roles. That's fair enough if that is the expectation that was delivered at when you elect those people, and those people who stand for chair and deputy know that role and responsibility prior. The reason that I have suggested that the triennium is the best place to do it is that there were none of these expectations visited upon those particular roles prior to the election of the current incumbents. So that's the reason why. It's a procedural motion. It's not designed to shut down debate at all on this. It's in actual fact saying the appropriate place to do is where this is going to happen. But can I give you two examples of what I mean as to how those expectations that are in this particular document, clearly I could never, ever meet in my current role. There are two. The first is that, and I'll read it under support the chair to lead the council expected outcome. Councillors maintain the boundaries between governance and operations as much as possible. Expected outcome, councillors and staff have a clear understanding of governance and operations and maintain the differing roles as much as possible. Philosophically, I feel that every aspect of operations is and has laid an overview of governance. There isn't a thing that happens in the ORC, in my view, that governance doesn't have a role in. So philosophically, I would be automatically opposed to that requirement in that particular job description. I could give you another one. It's under the same page, but it's just a good example. I could go through the whole lot. ORC meets the Sorry?
Can I have a question before you?
Yeah, sure.
Is this not, are we not actually, will this, your changes you wish to this document or concerns on this document be part of this discussion, and that's why we're having the discussion.
But that's why we're having the discussion. But I'm just trying to say.
No, it's not. You were trying to defer to
No,
next
sorry. I'm just trying.
Can I have the chair answer? Yeah, that's what I want to understand.
I'm trying
So
to
I've got some things
explain
I'd like
as
change,
to
so
how it would, if we go down the line of imposing these today, there would be a resignation at the end of this particular meeting from me because there is no way in the world that I could meet those views, because philosophically I would be opposed. And I'm saying, but I wasn't elected under those bases. It's a bit like trying to change, for example, the expectations of any staff member to going halfway through and saying, I'm going to put a whole series of things upon you which I didn't discuss with you when I appointed. Quite rightly, the staff member would say, well, that's not my job. I actually applied for this job and this is what I'm doing. And that's the discussion that we're having at the moment.
They do it all the time.
So, Kevin, there you go. Just to answer your question. Now, Councillor Kilbert, Councillor Kate, and then Alexa.
I want to talk as well.
Yeah, Kevin.
Was that me?
Yes, you.
I would prefer to see these debated before we appointed people for the essence of the reason produced by our chair, but I'm significantly concerned about some of these items. In general, I think that the chair, I'm happy for it to say things, a general expectation that the chair leads the councillors and leads the council, and that the deputy chair is a backstop for that whenever required. But once it's turned into this sort of matrix, it seriously concerns me. I don't think councillors and staff, for instance, have a clear understanding of governance and operations as separated, and we're working towards that at the moment to try and clarify that understanding, but we don't at the moment, and I don't know that we're going to end up agreeing about those things, about that there is a line that we fall on either side of. I think we're going to end up with something much more nuanced than that when we come to the end of that. But we've got other bits in it saying things like outcome, is that column outcome, expected outcome, obligations under legislations are complied with, for example. We've seen in the paper in the last week or so that we're not meeting our monitoring consents obligations. You know, we're getting 75% of them instead of 100% or something, and the average councils are getting 80% or something. Are we now going to suggest that for some reason the chair would be responsible for that these obligations are complied with? Because if we're going to then say the chair is responsible for those, where do the rest of us fit in? And what happens when we do like everybody else in the country, and if we're lucky, manage 80% of our absolute requirements that are obligations under the legislation? Where does that leave the chair? If we put something in here saying that's the intention, by managing the chair's the employment relationship with the chief executive, suddenly we make all these resource consent obligations, and then no, we can't. The chair just can't. We can't. Our CE can't carry out those obligations. So for us to have something in there.
Sorry, that was in relation to the employment obligations, so employment legislation, contracts, that particular outcome.
Yeah,
so manage the employment relationship.
But generally, if we have obligations under legislations, I can see that employment.
But they're specific to you as the chief executive's employer.
Can everybody start going through the chair, please?
Yeah,
otherwise we're going to get disorderly.
Yes, sorry, I just saw
that's all right.
Amanda getting somewhat agitated. All I'm saying is it's actually much trickier than it looks once you start putting it in a matrix that produces some expected outcomes and things, rather than a general thing saying they lead the councillors, they are the chief part of our relationship with our CE. They are expected to encourage the councillors to follow the standing orders and the code of conduct, and those general things are fine. But once you get into some of the stuff that's in here, we can't, and they're sort of a quasi standing orders code of conduct-y sort of thing, and I don't think that in a political environment that sort of we should add obligations beyond what is in the code and the standing orders. They're our way of describing ourselves. Outside that, political people, which is what we all are, should be able to carry out whatever role we have in the political organisation in the best way possible. And if we're not doing it well, our fellows round the table can just say, you, out of here, or choose somebody else. You're just not fulfilling your function. I'm really concerned about some of the ways that this has got into sort of almost like an employment situation, and even more concerned when I hear a fellow councillor saying, yes, it's a performance review. We will not be having, surely, performance reviews of our chair and deputy chair. That's not how this thing works. We can have codes of conduct and standing orders, but performance reviews.
No, guys, Alexa
Right.
and Hilary, listen.
Thanks,
no,
Alexa.
You both have your opportunities to speak. Okay.
Oh, sorry,
All right, it's
that's
okay.
what I heard, so my apologies.
Kate.
The first thing I want to is a question of you. So in paragraph 5 of the report, the job descriptions have been reviewed by the CE chair and deputy chair and feedback incorporated. So that was in response to the actual motion, which said the drafting to be in consultation with the CE chair and deputy chair. Have you been involved in that process, and did you agree to it? Because that is what I had understood was the
and I said, no way. I do not agree with this at all. And so that my feedback was not reflected in the document.
It concerns me. Thank you. I just wanted clarity of the report because that isn't how I thought this process was going to work. I will not be supporting this. I don't think this is a job description, but more importantly, I abstained from it because I thought it was always going to be a difficult and impossible process. I don't mind those first things under result areas sort of to be crafted into a job description. That is what I'd expect to be in there. The other stuff, activities and expected outcomes, I actually think are problematic to the staff. I think they're problematic to us because they almost seem like a line that you cannot cross, which will be crossed at times because the staff need us to cross those things, or the CE and so the chair and the deputy chair too. The nature of these jobs are things that you cannot fit into a matrix. What is needed in a time and place, and it will depend on the whole mix of the councillors, and it will depend on the relationships with the staff. I have no problem. This has gone way beyond what I had even envisaged would be in it, but why I abstained from it initially, because I think it's an impossible task, and I won't be voting for it.
Alexa.
And we voted on September 8th to scan the appropriate documents, to look around to us and our staff to put together some expectations of our chair and deputy chair. We noticed a motion that Brian brought and we voted on that. We agreed to do that. We did that for a reason, and we wouldn't have done so if we didn't think we needed to get some clarity around what these roles were and some idea of our expectations and functions around them. If we want to oppose parts of that now and debate that now, that is fine. But we asked staff to come up with this. They've come up with it, and we should now, Kate and Hilary, where they're going is the right thing to do, decide what we agree with and don't agree with within this paper. But we also have to rest assured that we know where they've come from. Every source is there. This is what best practice probably looks like in New Zealand. If we want to be wild west, wild south, fine. But, we asked for this and this is what we want. We should look at it.
Thank you, Alexa. Kevin.
I think this document is close to perfect. Because it's exactly what we asked for, and there's only a few. And look, as if I was a new councillor starting and giving my briefing papers before my first meeting, wouldn't it have been really good to see what the last council had as a job description for their chair and their deputy chair? It would have been really, really good to have, and it would have been a great place for me as a new councillor to reflect on how I wanted those positions to go forward with the challenges that I had coming into this organisation. And I'd assume that somewhere through the triennium, as different things happened and different legislations come down, that we might have to make some amendments, because as a group we decided that different things were happening. So look, I'm pretty comfortable with. There's about 3 or 4 things in here that I'd like to amend that I think would reflect better on a generic job description. One would be the salary. I think we just have to put in there set annually by the Remuneration Authority, because simply if this is going to be the basis of the document, so that's all we need to have. There's a part in the next page where I would have just had quarterly reports in that list as well, because I think quarterly reports are the key. That's where you've got annual, that's on page 27, where it's got annual plan and annual reports. I just think it's absolutely certain that we are right over top of our quarterly reports, because that's our instantaneous action. The next, lead relationship building with the ORC chief executive and staff, that needs to be reworded. That's reflecting a perceived or real situation that there's something not going quite right, and that should be more worded around work with the CE and governance team to ensure a strong and effective relationship between governance and ORC staff, as opposed to building in, because I think that wording says there's a problem. I think it's very important. You shouldn't be imposing that on the next slide. That is, sorry, page 27, the second column there.
Okay.
That's but I'm pretty comfortable with everything outside. And the only other part, just be careful because I don't want to have to ask the chair for another opportunity. And the only other part that I would like to see change was lead the ORC role in the region, and I would simply put the first paragraph in the actions. In the middle column, I would want the understanding and leading of the partnership with Mana Whenua. I believe that should be the third paragraph, because we need to recognise that we are here for the whole of the community, and Mana Whenua are part of the whole of the community. So I think that the key part, if we've got the whole community is our focus, but we've got a I'm not saying a mandate of what we have under the treaty, but we've got a definite mandate from our organisation that we are dealing specifically with Mana Whenua, but I think that should be below, because our key one is and the rest, I think, job well done, Amanda, and it would have been probably quite good to see. Oh, well, I did read some. I even sent you job descriptions from other entities. So,
right. Just a point of information. I'm assuming that the job descriptions for the deputy chair are exactly the same as for the chair. Is that correct?
Yes. The only difference was the manage the employment relationship with the chief executive, which is just in the chair's job description.
Can I ask a question?
Oh.
Questions or
We're actually sort of having a debate at the moment, but if there are points of information that you want to clarify, I'm happy for people to do so. Just do it. So, sorry. Are there people who would like to ask for points of information now? Hilary?
I realise that most of my concern about this involves the column that says expected outcomes, which seem to impose on a sort of like code of conduct, only a higher level version. And are they, I'm just trying to tease out what the status of those is. I'd like to see that column just disappear. What would be the status of those? They don't, if there was a job description that had the things without the expected outcomes on, what would?
I don't think we've got an answer to that question.
I think it's to help the person doing the role understand. So there's a list of activities, but what the person setting the job description, what are they actually looking for as a result of those activities? So it's up, over to councillors. Just one other point, Deputy Chair, the Deputy Chair job description also has to represent ORC and provide leadership where the Chair is not resident, which was in response to your feedback around the central leadership. So that is a difference between the two.
why I'm asking my question is that if we have in that column say that you should have weekly meetings or meetings at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday or something, what status does that suggestion have? Because we had made that as a particular resolution about meetings, but in general, that whole column, is it just suggested ways of carrying out these functions, or is it?
It's up to us.
Yes. So expected outcomes, whose expectations
but I can't
is
answer
it?
that question. It is up to us as to if there should be a job description, and then B, what that entails, and then C, what the practical consequences of that job description are, and whether or not they are to be fulfilled, and how you would judge they were going to be fulfilled, and what expectations you would have if they weren't fulfilled. In very much the same way, I guess, as the chief executive would take all her staff, I guess, through a yearly review, I guess you'd do exactly the same for these roles as well. But we'd be making it up as we went along. The idea is to set a series of parameters out about what it might look like, and then to judge the performance of either the chair or the deputy against those parameters. Have I got that right, Amanda? The only thing is consequences. So, for example, what are the consequences? We don't think you've done a very good job, we're going to score you 5 out of 10. Well, we don't have that in this at the moment. So there's more work to be done, one would anticipate, in this area.
My understanding was that, in being tasked to create job descriptions, it was about setting a set of agreed expectations of yourselves as governors of your
but if those expectations are met, what are the consequences? And how do you work out whether those expectations are being met or not?
I don't think they need to be.
So that's what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah.
There's still work to be done in that area.
Well, if it was poor, you wouldn't want to score a 7 out of 12. Think about that.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian.
Yeah.
So we're talking to the debate now. I've had our information.
Yeah. Look, hey, we all voted for this job description, and yourself.
No, we didn't all.
Okay, well, it was passed. It must have.
Thank you, that's different.
Yeah. Well, certainly the majority of the councillors did. And including yourself, I think, Councillor.
No, sorry, can I clarify that? Because you've said this a number of occasions. I voted for a paper to be brought to this council.
Yep, that's right.
I didn't vote for job descriptions.
Yep.
Right. I think in any, job description process, I think it's normal, to have a little bit of pushback, just to put the job description on the table and expect it's just going to be received and accepted 100%. I think that's not generally how it works. So I was interested to hear when you said, what was your words you used? You sort of said, nah. I don't know whether you said no to the whole process or whether the 2%.
No. In actual fact, again, if you've asked that question, my description was pretty much where it says purpose, that's the purpose. So if you go to Chief and you'll see that box that says purpose.
Yeah.
That's what I said was a fair job description. And then I added another one, which was, and where geographically, because we're such a geographically diverse area, the chairman can't be present. For example, he's in Dunedin at the moment. I might play the chairman's role, i.e. that sort of leadership role in, say, Central Otago or Queenstown, just because it was easier to do. So that's what we were talking about.
So your reside part.
That was the resident, but yeah.
Look, I don't expect the path to establish a job description to be an easy path. But if we can sort this out, I think it will be of benefit not only to the chair and the deputy chair, but the organisation as a whole. Like, my recommendation would be that if there are any concerns, because we want to get these as good as we possibly can, if there are any concerns, that we refer them to maybe a working group.
Just going to suggest that.
To a working group, or there may be the employment committee, that may or may not be appropriate.
No.
But a working group of, say, 4 councillors, and I think you should be.
I think you're brilliant.
Well, there
you go. How far have we progressed in this debate? Can I pick up what you've just said and move a motion then?
Yeah.
That this item be referred to a working party.
Yeah.
Of the chair the deputy chair,
Yeah.
Councillor Scott, and any other volunteer, Councillor Calvert,
All of us would love to do
all right.
that, I'm sure.
and
What do we do
for
now?
working on these and refining them for presentation to the next council meet, or to an approximate council meeting.
We second it for you.
All right,
What were those
seconded?
names again?
Yeah. So that was the chair, the deputy, Councillor Scott and Councillor Calvert.
What about Councillor Robertson?
Well, there'll be 5.
Councillor Robertson.
Okay, we can have 5.
Cool.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. Do we need any more discussion if we're going to
No.
do that?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
You
Yep.
want to speak?
I mean,
I haven't got to yet. Yeah.
Right.
yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Gretchen, Gretchen, you're next.
apologies.
Yeah, I just wanted to endorse what Kevin said. I think this is absolutely perfect as it is. I do remember that debate, and actually at the time, yeah, you may have voted just to bring a paper forward, but actually you said it was a brilliant idea to have job descriptions, and other councils have them, and it will be a really good way to move forward. So we've done that, and we have looked at those other councils. I actually, from listening to what others have said as well, your main point was the boundaries between governance and operations. Okay, but I haven't actually heard too much more on the rest of why this isn't okay. I think it looks absolutely great. This is how I would expect my chair and my deputy to behave. And actually, our ultimate outcome, as asked by Councillor Calvert, of what would happen if we weren't happy would be, basically that by resolution or
7-12.
requisition that we could remove the chair or the deputy if they didn't meet the standards that actually we needed from them. These are the standards that I need from my chair and my deputy. I am really comfortable with them. I'm happy with perhaps a few tweaks to some words, but actually, why would you not want to do this? It's just basic good governance and basic good behaviour from my point of view. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Now, you've spoken, Kevin, so Andrew, you have not.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion, because I think it was really, really important. And thanks to Brian and Amanda for having the information in front of us. And it's the first crack, first cut to try and resolve the job description, or I suppose to create clarity around the job description. Just a couple of things. In my view, it's included under next steps that if this was adopted, it gives us a guide of how we should perform. And I think that's very important. You've got to add the human factor, obviously, and the situation factor and all the rest of it. But there's a framework here for us to work within, and I think that's all fair enough. In terms of if the deputy chair and chair don't perform, it wouldn't just be about this job description. It would be a much wider brief than that, because there'd be plenty of other activities or pathways that we could find ourselves on the outer. But pleased that it's here. But I do have some sympathy with Michael's point at the front end of this discussion around that the chair and deputy chair at the beginning of the triennium are presented with these. I think that is probably ideal. On reflection, when I ended up as chair, there was essentially, here it is, go for it. So there was no, and I think I said this the last time we had the discussion, or when Brian first introduced this notice of motion, there was no, file full of direction on how you should perform. And to be fair, there is a lot of sort of personality involvement in chairing. You sort of find your own way, and I suppose you make a few mistakes along the way and you get the rough edges knocked off you. But that's probably not ideal. I think in the future, if we are able to provide a greater direction in this job description, I think we'd be all better off for it. So,
Right.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. It stands that a working
Question.
party. Kevin.
The comments that we have made to date, and I'm particularly referring to the ones I've made about alterations that I would like to see or be considered, where does that get encapsulated? Because I've got one more that because I thought we were going to go through the the chairs and the deputy chairs.
Email onto the group.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's the most, I'll come to that in a second. But I think if
Well,
this,
it's critical
if
of the
this,
motion.
okay, fair enough.
I want to know
If this motion passes, okay, so this, I'm conscious of the fact it's 5 to 12. If this motion passes, then elected members will be invited to put their thoughts to the working party, and they will be, I imagine, thoroughly considered prior to the report back of that working party to council. Now, are there any other questions? Brian?
My question is, thank you for the resolution and so forth, but I'm only going to join this working party if the members of the working party basically agree to work constructively towards a positive job description or words to that effect. And I'm not going to put that in the resolution, but I'm just saying I'm not going to turn up to a working party where it's all about pulling something apart and saying no.
Well,
I'm just saying that.
I'm just saying that no. Sometimes it's part of the democratic process too, though. But there wouldn't be people who want to enter the working party who'd want to waste their time, Brian, I think is the answer to that question. Now, the motion is that, so I'm moving it, you're seconding it.
Yeah.
Councillor Scott seconding it. The working party of the chair, deputy, Councillor Scott, Kelvin, Richards, and Robertson. Be
Told your husband.
further refine the job description for the chair and deputy chair of the Otago Regional Council for reference to a future council meeting. Yeah. Right, so that's the motion. All right, so I'll take all the motions together that we note the report and take the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's too late, but carry on.
No. Chief Executive just raised a point. Sorry. Executive just raised a point about a time frame. So it's about having clear resolutions so staff understand what our expectations are.
Well, this is up to Amanda now to liaise with, we haven't appointed a chairman. You're it. So there you go. So if you could liaise with him and it'll be his, sorry mate, but there you go.
Well, hang on, I think
what we just want is the resolution to change and say to which council meeting it will be referred.
The next governance.
That will depend, well, the next governance meeting is next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you want it next year or do you want it this year?
To the next governance communications and engagement meeting.
I'm in the hands of the meeting.
so. We've got our last council meeting on the 8th of December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that manageable?
Yeah, let's bring it to that.
There you go.
Ask Amanda for that. It's not us to manage it.
Is that, sorry,
Bringing it to the
That's a
8th of
fair
December council meeting.
you can handle that, can you or not?
Yes, absolutely. If
There
the
you
working
go.
group's happy to meet
Yep.
and feed in, absolutely.
There you go. And your chair.
Oh, I think we'll worry about that when we get together.
All right. Okay. It's been passed anyhow, so all this is slightly moot. Now,
Oh,
general
hold on.
business.
No,
Sorry, I think
you haven't moved it yet.
Yes, I
we
did.
have
I've moved,
we-
seconded, and-
we have moved it and people voted on it, but I think it probably said to the December meeting, or if it didn't, then could we just say after that resolution that the working party there is an expectation, and we can discuss this as not part of the resolution, that it will be to that council meeting in December.
I think the expectation is what the expectation is. It'll be recorded in the minutes. The working party will meet. It may decide that it wants to do further work.
Yeah, I understand what council and this is about giving direction and timeframes for staff.
Exactly.
That if we're saying it's to the 8th of December meeting, staff will come back to us under the actions list saying because of unavailability of 6 of the members of the 5-member working party, we've been unable to have the meeting. We've now deferred it. So, but we need to have a date.
I'll move an additional motion that the working party meet ASAP and a report comes back for council's consideration on the 8th of December.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Right, and Amanda, I'll leave you to set that up. It might have to be done by Zoom, but don't worry about it if it is. Yeah. General business. There's one item of general business, and Carmen discussed it with me prior. Would you like to raise it now, Carmen?
Thank you, Councillor Laws. I do not like the Meltwater newsletters that we receive. I don't feel it encapsulates all of our communications. In fact, it leaves a lot of rural Otago out. I never see the Federated Farmers newsletters in here, which always talks about Otago Regional Council if you get them, and you won't get them because you don't live rurally. But that's the sort of thing I would expect to see in here. I'm not sure how much money we pay for this, but I would really like this re-looked at again, please, or could we, in any way, shape or form. And I'm sure probably Councillor Kelleher would say the same thing from rurally, and maybe Councillor Wilson, perhaps Councillor Malcolm. Sometimes I know you don't always subscribe to those, rural newsletters or weeklies that I do. Or you do? I'm not sure, sorry. But I just feel it's not encapsulating. Some things in here are also very incorrect. Some reading, the spelling of some things, and as I say, it picks up on somebody, no offence to you, Councillor Wilson in England, and we get a running commentary on you. Dear God.
Double life I lead.
So I would just like to say that I think we need to have a new look, please, and I would like to know what we pay for it.
Okay.
And I don't think we're getting value for our buck.
Amanda, if we move a motion to review the effectiveness of the current news, it used to be called the News Clipping Service. What's it now called?
I should just add, so Richard Saunders looks after communications, not myself. And
I know
Richard's
that, but
not
I'm
here
just
today.
trying to frame what the motion would be because you're in charge of this committee in terms of governance. What's it called? What's it called? The news? It's not news clippings. It's called something else.
It's called a Meltwater newsletter that we produce.
Right.
Michael, Sarah's got
we are
some
actually looking
advice
at
for us.
Good. Okay, Sarah.
I'm really well aware that this is an issue. Councillor Laws, you've raised it over email a couple of times recently, and I think Richard provided a email back that had some detail in it around the work we were doing to improve the service. So what I'd like to do is see how far we've got with that progress. I'm not certain about whether or not any service would necessarily pick up the Fed Farmers newsletter or whatever, just because it's about media, I guess, as opposed to newsletters. So I'm not sure.
Respond to that. No, it's just Mrs. Gardner. It specifically talks about us as Otago Regional Council.
Yes, I understand that,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, I'm not sure that the Fed Farmers newsletter would be in the basket of media
I see what you're saying. It's
things
not.
that the assessment applies over. So, or if it could even be, regardless of whether it was Meltwater or anyone else. So there is work that would need to be done to look into that.
Gary?
But I know that Richard has been working on it.
Gary?
It's not just the Fed Farmers newsletter. The Fed Farmers have their own media newspaper that is part of the media stuff that they release, but there's also other farmer-based news products that come out to every rural delivery, and none of the ORC stuff is picked up by Meltwater. So Councillor Hope's picking up a really valid point. There was a beautiful article and photo of her and her role in the ORC that wasn't picked up at all. It was a really good test, and that was in these rural publications go to every rural news letterbox. So she raises a valid point.
Councillor Keller?
Would it be possible, and I presume what we're talking about is there's half a dozen things that come out that we're not monitoring is what it amounts to, in particular, rural life and whatever it is. Is there any chance that it would be possible for one of our comms people to actually once a week. I mean, we presumably receive copies of some of these things. We could presumably receive copies of all of them. Once a week, have a look at them and report to us if they're weekly.
If you
rags
tell
or anything.
us what you want,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
we'll figure out how to do it.
Can I give you an example?
I didn't want to put anything on our people that
Right,
was
but
just unreasonable, but
what the chief executive said is that Richard Saunders is currently doing a review of meltwater. But what it needs to be pointed out, and please, you're listening as well, this is what it's not picking up. I'm struggling to remember ever an article from the Oamaru Mail, and I'm pretty sure the Otago Regional Council has been in the Oamaru Mail. Nothing from the Central Otago News, nothing from the Cromwell's, all those small Cromwell papers. We'd see nothing from Belclutha or any of those papers down there that service them. Indeed, if it's, I can Google, by putting in Otago Regional Council, I get a better service from just putting in the Google thing and saying, every time Otago Regional Council turns up, send me this, than I get from Meltwater. So Carmen's right. We complained about the last service and we were right to complain about it. We've gone to Meltwater. It seems to be an even lesser provider. So we'll await Richard's reply, but it's a very valid point Carmen raises. Do we need a motion on that, or have we got everything underway?
Can I just make comments, Chair? The email that Richard sent, I don't know, a couple of 3 weeks ago, acknowledged the points you've just made, and he said that he'll keep us updated on progress, but he's reviewing Meltwater's performance, and he acknowledged that it had tapered off over the period of time that we'd had them in play, which was not that long. So I think it's in hand, is what I'm trying to say. Whether the brief around those additional publications, I'm not sure whether Richard's aware of that, but I'm sure we can let him know.
Nationwide publications.
But you're our new comms manager, is that right?
So would you like me to come out and?
I'd love you to, because I mean, really, yeah, it'd be nice for you to be part of.
Has your short agenda going, mate?
Well, you talked too long on that job description thing. I had a whole hour to give to you, but there you go.
So everyone, this is Joe Gaylor. Joe is our new communications manager.
Oh. Hi. Does this just work automatically?
Yeah, it's fine, Joe.
Yeah. Hi. We have been looking into it, and Richard has been communicating with us on it. We have a contract, an annual contract that we enter into, and currently we have a year to run on this current contract with Meltwater. We can look at other service providers, and the problem is that I've found with media monitoring in the past is that quite often content that's behind a paywall is harder to extract. And also at times smaller community publications, so Sarah's point that she just made about Federated Farmers publications, some may not be in their monitoring list because media is a very broad term these days, and the market is so incredibly fragmented. So it's not an excuse, but it's trying to give you some insight as to the sorts of issues that we find with media monitoring. So some will operate from Australia, for example. Meltwater is based there, but they provide a service in New Zealand, and others will be New Zealand based. So we do need to look at it, but I know that we're making some tweaks to the search terms at the moment to see if we can improve what you're receiving. And so it's a work in progress.
Can I ask a question of our councillors, which might help you, Joe? Do we need a service? So we'll go around the table on that issue. Do we need a service? Well, okay. What service does it provide you? Why do you need it?
From my point of view,
we particularly need the ones we're not getting, in the sense that those, like I get the ODT anyway, so somebody telling me what's on the ODT, I should have looked for it myself or whatever. But if it's something that I couldn't get access to, usually that's the ones I want. I want to know what is in the rural leader or the whatever it is. Yeah. So those are the very ones that I'm interested in, and the ones that around Otago that aren't ones that I would usually have access to.
It's really difficult because a lot of publications have gone to online only and don't actually produce print anymore as well. So yeah, it is an issue, and it's one that's faced by a lot of organisations, I believe. But as a service, I guess all I can advise you to do is take what we've got at the moment. We're tweaking it, but also to perhaps search out those publications where you've had some contact to find how they've reported you.
Kate.
As a beneficiary of something that just comes into our mailbox, whether we order it or not, and they are all online, I think it would be really constructive if those that have papers that are online can put them in an email that we can just send out the links. This is where you can go and find this information. Because us searching it ourselves and reading what we want to read may be a better way than, I mean, chasing things by our names. Seriously, Michael, I love you dearly, but I don't want to know everything you're doing, because I know your job is much broader than working as a councillor, as is mine. And equally, I don't want to hear about Councillor Kate Wilson from England, because that's what we're getting at the moment. So I think we could constructively help Joe with some ideas of the papers that we find useful and where we can get them online, and then get that sent out as they come out and we can read them ourselves.
Gretchen.
Yeah, personally, I don't get a lot of benefit myself. I don't really actually even look at it because, yeah, I'm looking at the main sources anyway, and then I realise there's a whole lot of limitations. So, for example, yeah, your federated farmers, that's a membership, so goes same with fish and game, wilderness, forest and bird, whatever, all of those publications, millions of different ones, different clubs, societies, all out there. Then there's things like social media where people are getting a heap of information. Dunedin News, for example, probably has a much bigger following than any of the things we've just mentioned. Totally, yeah, interesting info, but that's the type of info people turn to. So no, I actually don't get a lot of benefit from it. I try to search out for myself what I need. Yeah.
Okay, well, Alexa.
I find it pretty useful. I don't get the OBT, I don't subscribe to it. And it often gives us stories. Sometimes they're paywalled, you know, from the Herald and other places, and we get the country through that and various things that I find really useful. But I am interested, and I haven't done the exercise myself, and that is to compare with what we pick up with meltwater and what we would pick up with just a straight Google search. I don't know how different they actually are. I do worry that we miss a lot of stuff, but I don't, as far as I know, there isn't a commercial service that offers a complete service. And it's so disparate these days, the media and the platforms. Not sure how we do it, but yeah, I agree it's a problem, but I do use what we have at the moment, and I use other sources as well.
Gary.
I use it. I think it's really good. It's really handy to if you miss something, but to me it has to be complete. If we are paying for it, it should be complete. And I think the whole point that Councillor Hope has raised is that there are general publications out there that are targeted to the rural sector. They are a media publication. They would go to the urban sector if there was a means, but their advertising, whatever, doesn't target that area. It targets the rural sector. And what Councillor Hope is saying is that the ORC and the system is missing out on those articles that are written by journalists for the rural sector, but they cover a lot of ORC stuff. And so to me, I would just see those in the rural sector who get these things regularly would just be saying to you, if we don't see it there, would say, these are the publications.
Can you supply a list of those for us?
It could be countrywide, it could be whatever. And you then can pass that on to Meltwater.
Yeah, definitely. If you can supply a list of the ones that you're really interested in and that you're missing out on, that would be really useful. Thank you.
I've supplied lists repeatedly, but it doesn't seem to make any difference.
Yeah, well, we have actually looked into those lists you've provided, and there is some further work that we've been doing as a result of your lists, yes.
Well, can I give you an example again? Central Otago News. So that's a publication that goes throughout the whole of the Dunstone, from Queenstown. Doesn't pick up any of it. Why would that be? And yet there it is, and it's available online as well.
Yeah,
And that's the bit that I don't get, Joe.
there's some search terms perhaps we can tweak as well. So there's a whole lot of things that we're doing at the moment, but I haven't got all of the information at my fingertips. But certainly, there's a whole lot of issues in the mix with this one.
Well, I'm distressed to hear that we're paying for another year for a really bad service. What? Okay, and what is the cost,
We've
please?
said we're doing-
The other question
we've said
was,
we're doing
what is
some
the
work.
cost?
No, it's a commercial arrangement, so it wouldn't be appropriate to disclose that in an open meeting.
Okay, but we can ask that in an unopen meeting. Yes.
We do get the ODT only on a Saturday because it's just where we live, and the newspaper comes at, funny times of day. Yeah, it's just how it goes.
Also,
So-
month late.
Yeah, that's right. So I really like it. I really like and I need it, to be honest. That's how I get my news source. I don't have a lot of time to do it. And I'm like Alexa, and I find it a really good tool. But I just think we are missing the here and now. And we get the Otago Central News sent to us where we live. It's a great paper. And I would say 9 times out of 10 every week, there is something about the ORC in there.
Yes, that's right.
And there's a lot about the ORC, and it's just not a snippet. There's a grunty.
Have you seen some CO news stories in there, in that newsletter?
Yes, we used to,
Yes.
and it's been tailing off lately.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in fact, we used to get them all the time with the previous provider, ironically.
Yeah.
Our problem was they didn't go anywhere else. Okay, anything else? Cool. Thank you very much. Sorry to have taken so long. We've got another meeting at 1 o'clock. Just quickly, the working party, can we have a quick meeting, please, of the members of the working party right now to set up our next meeting? Please. Thank you. Thank you very much. You did a great job. I'm officially closing. You did a great job.